Have you ever thought about how improving your workspace could affect your productivity? On today's episode of Word of Mouth, we'll be talking about just that with our special guest. Stay tuned.
Get ready to improve your mindset, increase your skill set, and expand your network. Follow along as the CEO of Master Networks brings you over a decade of business networking experience. Welcome to Word of Mouth with Chaz Wilson.
At Business Boot Camp recently, which brings up an interesting thing. It was the first educational workshop we did at HQ in our newly designed space. We revamped. We took out all the, what do they call, cubes. We took out all the cubes and moved the desks over, and it opened up the space entirely. So it was a really cool opportunity to do a workshop in our new space.
Yeah, it was so nice. And that topic is perfect for today with our guest, Miss Lynn Wilson. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to Word of Mouth.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, so as you heard and you just saw, you walked through the space, we changed it. We got rid of all the cubes. One of the reasons we got rid of the cubes is because if we ever needed to move space, it's hard to move all of those cubicles somewhere. But what it also did is it opened up that side now because we don't have that barrier of those cubes blocking the window. So we have it all open, and we have this now workspace, open workspace with our team in the middle, and then the training room there on the side. So one of the things we got to talking about, we thought to have you in to talk about is how your workspace helps you be more productive. So first of all, tell everyone what you do, and then we'll kind of dovetail into that topic.
So I do interior design, interior decorating, and color consultations for clients and help them create a space that serves them and works for them. So perfect.
Yeah, so what do you think, first of all? First impression is you walked in.
Well, first of all, I hadn't seen it before, so it's very different than it was before. I love the fact that when you walk in, you can see out the back windows.
I know, right?
Which brings in
So
so much
nice.
natural light, which is so important when you're working.
Yeah.
Can also be a bit distracting if you're, can be
Distractible.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello. But yeah, it's really great. I love it.
Well, we've even done that in a few episodes. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, window, people
Yeah.
walking by.
Well,
Yes.
cars
I think
driving.
our team, like, they felt that for the first time too during Business Boot Camp, because that was the first time Chaz was teaching out in the open and our team sitting right there. But I also think it was a good learning experience for them because they could listen in while still working, which is pretty cool.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what are like
Right.
some keys? Because I think with so many people with COVID, a lot of people had to transition to working from home. Almost everybody had to transition working from home. Some still are. So let's talk both. The workspace, regardless of where it is, whether it's in an office, whether it's in your home, what are some things that people need to consider to do to make a more productive workspace?
Okay, so that's huge. There's a lot there.
Yeah. Unpack all of that, please.
Yes, I will. First of all, the biggest mistake people make is they don't have a plan.
Okay.
They think, okay, I'm going to get a desk, I get a comfy chair, I'm set, good to go.
That was me.
Right?
When COVID hit, I was like, I'm working from home now. I just need like somewhere to sit. That's fine.
Right.
No.
Right.
Kitchen
no.
table.
Yeah. No,
No.
that's where I work.
Well, and for some people, that's their only option, and so they make it work.
Right.
But if you're designing a space specifically, you need to look at a whole lot of things. The first thing is the function of it. How do you work? Because not everybody works the same way.
Right.
For some people, just a table or a writing desk is perfect. That's all they need. Other people need a lot of storage. They maybe need a drawer that will facilitate files. Some people like an L-shaped desk. So I've got the spot here for my computer, and I can turn this way, and I've got a space to write on or whatever. So you have to look at those things first. You also have to take into account the size of the room.
Yes.
I'm working with a client right now who bought a desk that's way too big for the space. So she can't even get out of the office.
Maybe
without-
that was by design. Maybe that was I'm going to lock myself in here and get these taxes done or whatever.
Right. So you have to look at that too. How do you work?
Yep.
And then the other thing you have to look at is colors. Colors in a space can detract from or add to your productivity.
Yeah,
See, I've never thought of that
interesting.
because this room in here is one of the only rooms that we like
have
really
color.
Right.
Yeah.
Blue wall over here and then white
Yeah.
walls over there. It's almost been white everywhere I've worked all the
Mhm.
time.
Right. And most offices are. But so when we talk about, there's a whole psychology to color,
Yeah.
which could take hours to talk about. But the best way to explain it to people is look at fast food restaurants. Okay, so
Right.
what are the colors there? Reds, yellows, oranges, black, white. High power, high energy colors. They don't want you to stay. They want you to sit down, eat your food, and get out so that they can pull in more people. if you look at a restaurant that is, more high end or whatever, they do care about the experience. So their colors are softer. There's woods. There's natural elements in there.
So you
They
feel
want
welcome to stay.
Yes.
Right.
Because the longer you are there, the more money you're spending. And they want you to have that experience. If it's a really upscale, it might be really opulent in design. But so all of those things are, play on the psychology.
So if we came in and we started painting this all like, nice, soft brown, like a soft, I don't know what colors, but and maybe everyone wants to stay longer. But if we started reds and blacks, it's like
get me out of here.
It's 2:00. I'm ready to go home. Or I feel like I need to
Right.
order a burger or something like that, like whatever.
McDonald's
Yeah.
on call.
I'm hungry all the time. I don't know why.
So desk space, color.
Mm-hmm.
What else is really important to the productivity in a design?
Well, I think that the form of and the function of where you put things. So,
Okay.
what do you need on the ready all the time, and have those things near you? I had somebody say to me, "I'm going to have an organization person come in and just reorganize my office so that it's all
Yeah.
great." But you need to be a part
Right.
of that.
I'm like,
because-
in theory, that sounds good, but then you won't be able to find
It's
anything.
like, where'd they
Right.
put that?
right.
Yeah.
We all know those people who have, and maybe actually be those people who have the piles on their desks, and
Yeah, I have piles.
but to the observer, they walk in and they go, "Okay, what a mess! Like,
Yeah.
how do you find anything?" But you can, because you know where it is in the pile.
Right.
But to someone else, it looks ugly. So what you can do with that is use vertical or horizontal filing.
Okay.
So this, stack trays or whatever. So you still have your piles,
Yeah.
but
Just
they
an
look better.
organized
Yeah.
pile.
It's an organized pile.
So-
No, I think that there's power in that. So, for instance, my office is at a corner, so I have windows on two sides, right? And then I like to face that. Some people are like, well, I'll have that behind me. But first of all, my desk is shaped almost in a U instead of an L. But I like to be able to look out. Plus, the other thing is I do a lot of Zoom calls. So I think this is an interesting function, which
Yes.
we'll talk about on another episode with somebody who does a lot of lives, is that light then is on my face versus behind me
Right.
when I'm doing a Zoom, and it washes me out and I can't they can't see me.
Right, right.
So that was an important function when we put the office together, is the light facing my. Now, the only challenge we have is that changes of season.
Yeah.
The sun is there. That's something we didn't think about, is the sun is there at different times. Now it's there earlier. It's in my face. And so it, like, by the afternoon, the office is almost dark because the sun's up over here and it's not shining in the office. Different things like that.
Yeah,
that people
natural
don't.
light is key to everything for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So what are some of the mistakes that people have made, or what's like a really bad functioning office that you've ever seen that
Well, I did see one
they
where
won't watch this. Don't worry about it. You can
Yeah,
talk.
that's right. I won't name names. But I did see one where the desk, it was two people working in a small office space. And it was so small that the desks were up against the wall, but then
Wait, were their backs to each other?
their backs were to each
Okay.
other. So one person would have to shift a little so the other person could get out. And then the other person would have to shift so that person could get out. And there had to have been a better way to do that.
You'd think.
You would think.
Right.
But they both wanted to face a wall. So there was a wall, a window, and a door. So really, to face the wall, that was their only option. And it was so small, you couldn't even stagger them a little bit so they could, make that happen. So,
Wow.
yeah, that was really bad. That
Yeah.
was really bad. So the one guy just said, "Do we have a closet even I can work out of?" Because this
Or
is
like
ridiculous.
a smaller desks could
Yeah.
have helped, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any storage in there either.
Right.
So it was really difficult for them to function.
I think one of the things like I've considered at times is like getting one of those raised desks so I could stand.
Yes, I
right?
love those.
Yeah.
It's because it's like you sit for so long. I find myself walking around the office just because I want to get some movement. But
Right.
if you have
Yeah.
a standing desk, it's nice to have the ability to have a standing desk, not a full-time standing desk.
So I'd love your take on this, because I kind of battle this thought, and I don't know if anyone else does, but I kind of think, okay, if I did a standing desk, like, do I want to stand all day? Like, that could be long. I mean, I could still have a sitting desk too, but then the other side of me is like, maybe my meetings would be more on point, and like when I'm sitting, I'm more comfortable.
Right.
So maybe the meetings go on longer than they should. Where if I'm standing, it's like, we're all standing. This is going to be a fast meeting. I don't know.
Yes. Because if you're sitting and you're all comfortable, then it tends to go from a meeting to a conversation to killing time to like, okay, let's end this now. So yes, I do think if you're standing, things do move a lot quicker because you just get tired of standing. You do have the option of, they have the portable standing desks
Right,
that
where you
sit
can
on top
lift
of your
it.
desk. Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you just
yeah.
lift it up and down.
That's
And so
right.
you have that option as well. But again, so much of what we do is a personal thing. That's why you really need to look at what works for you. What
Right.
works for you may not work for her, may
Right.
not work for me.
Right.
So it really is a personal thing.
And when we talk about this when it relates to productivity, I mean, how much does all this truly affect our productivity or not?
A lot.
Okay, how so?
So if I have, and this is really important too to think about when you have employees that work for you,
Yeah.
because you may want your office to look a certain way. When I come in, I want the desks to look a certain way, and that may not function for that person. So
Right.
even having consistency in desks, of course you want that from an aesthetics, but it may
I
not
mean,
work
she
for
tells
everybody.
us now we just bought
Right,
like
I
12
know.
desks that are all the same.
Well, it's not like you didn't have my number.
Yeah.
You could
True.
have called.
True.
But so we have to be conscious of how other
By the
people
way, I don't
work.
make those decisions here anymore. I don't know if you know that, but I am kicked out of those decisions.
All right.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, we do have to
Yeah.
take into consideration how our staff works, what works best for them,
Yeah.
and then try to accommodate that from an aesthetics. Because the first thing we do is function, and obviously the second is aesthetics. Because
Yep.
it can be beautiful,
Right.
Right.
but if it doesn't.
But I've
function
noticed
for
like
you-
some of them too, like some people on the team have multiple screens, like,
Right.
multiple computers, even working off different computers and different screens for their productivity. So to the point too about like standing versus sitting and all that and making a productive workspace, one of the things I've noticed too is like if I'm presenting or if I'm on phone calls that we're on, especially if I'm trying to like maybe sell or close a deal or something like that, standing is always better because my energy's up
Right.
to that
Well, and you feel like professional, like you're not just slouched in your chair or like it's more of a professional conversation because that's how it would be in the front of a room, whether you're in person or not in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
presentation mode, if you will.
Mhm.
How do you feel about food in your office? How do you feel about food?
I don't know, but I feel like I'm being pulled into something.
No, no, no.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean,
I thought
I'm
maybe
curious.
this was a discussion that y'all have.
Oh,
Well, no, I'm
Well, it's just Chaz and I are always snacking during our
It's a
meetings,
joke.
so
That
it's
is-
like we
that's
always
true.
have
That is
food.
what I was thinking
That's what
even.
I was
No.
like. Oh, we always have food.
I joked with Katie last week. I was like, she's like, "Well, you want to meet right now?" I said, "Well, I'm going to be eating." But then I was like, "There's not a meeting with one of us isn't eating. It's
Yeah.
not technically a meeting."
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, eating is the root word of meeting, right?
It is.
Eat
But
meat.
I feel
is.
like for me personally, I think like the lunch hour or the lunch time, it's important for me personally to not be in my office because I
100%.
think when I do that, I work. And so, which is sometimes needed, but not always. Sometimes I need that mental break to like go to a different seat, sit out with people, have
Yep.
my lunch, and then go back into my office and continue working.
And we do that a lot here. Like we'll
Mhm.
go the training areas where everyone kind of
Right.
sits and eats as our lunchroom because their desks are out in the middle now. The reason I ask is, like a day like yesterday where other than like a 30-minute break, I was in my office from like 10:30 to I left at 6. So like I was in my office the whole time. The door shut. I barely came out. One call to the next. And then like you realize 4 hours in, you're like, I need some fuel. Like I am
Right.
So I just wondered if like productivity, from a productivity standpoint, people think, okay, I have all the desks and the windows and the monitors and all that stuff. Oh, I should have some snacks.
I mean, I
some
have a
food,
snack
like
drawer.
energy, but energy food. Like
I think
Yes.
so too.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And but to that point, that should not take the place of taking a break and going out and
Correct.
sitting down and clearing your mind, because you hear people, business owners say all the time, "I stepped away, and I was able to see things differently and make
Right.
changes or improvements or whatever." If we're not taking those breaks, we're not really being 100% productive.
When I think that, especially here at Master Networks, I think that relates really heavily with our company culture because
True.
we have the ability to take that break. I've worked for companies before where they catered in lunch, which sounds great, but it was because they didn't want anyone to leave. They didn't
Oh.
want anyone to have the freedom to not
Wow.
leave their desk. And when I first started, I was like, this is awesome. Like fresh out of college,
yeah,
getting these free meals, and then it was like, oh my gosh, I'm like in jail. because I couldn't leave, and it was crazy.
Especially when the bell rings. Back to your cell.
No,
I mean, your
no,
office.
I'm serious. They rang the phones when lunch was ready. Like, it was very routine. 11:30 every day.
Robots walking down the hall.
I mean, it was a
Place,
robotics company. So
there you
go.
They were conditioning you.
They had no other choice. That was the only thing they could do. Well, and as you were saying that, I was thinking that, well, they give you free meals in jail too, but that's not necessarily where you want to be. So.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot.
You get to walk the yard here. That's the difference. Right?
We do take lunch walks. So.
Yeah. I mean, what an interesting thing, though, because there's so many things that we've looked at in our office to not just in your workspace, but in the office in general, from flow to, the coffee bar area that everyone was like, oh, it'd be really great if we had that. The training area that we then keep. Here's another one we had is we added having music playing through the office. I don't know if it was.
I don't know if it's on today or
probably because we're recording in
probably
here.
not.
But we typically have music playing, and not like, I mean, it was pretty loud yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, it was playing. But what's fun is, like, I walked in and the energy is completely different immediately when I walk in.
Yes.
Because there's music playing. So
yes.
I don't know if that's something you
it is. However, there are people who can't function with that.
Right.
And so again, it's knowing your staff, what works for them and what doesn't. Because so I shared an office with my husband for a year, and he's very quiet.
Were you guys the one that were back to back in the small
yes,
room?
that was us. I should have told you. It was truly us. No, but it didn't work because I'm singing or I'm talking to myself or whatever, and then he would, are you talking to me? No.
No.
Or then when I was, he would ignore me because he thought I was talking to myself. So again, I like music.
Yep.
I need that energy to keep things going, but some people need quiet to focus. So again, it's just knowing what works for different people.
Super funny they bring that up because, like, my kids, there's at least 3 of my kids who just when it's there. So 5 kids, we rotate the dishes. So one week, one of them's doing the dishes, whatever. Like, there's 3 of the 5 that cannot do the dishes without music playing. They're like, I literally can't do it unless there's music.
I have to have music playing when I'm doing the dishes. It's just more fun. Like, it's not.
No, I get it. It's just hard when it's like 8:30 at night or 9 o'clock at night, and
they're like blaring music.
Yeah, one's trying to finish homework at the kitchen table, and one's trying to do the dishes, and it's blaring. It's like, it is that productivity piece, and when you look at the number of hours you have in a day to actually get things done and get them accomplished, it's a challenge to do it by itself, let alone if you don't have the right work environment. And I think that could be your car. I mean, I've had things that I did years past where I worked out of my car. So then how do I have my car be that workspace that's productive?
Yes, and I've worked with clients who they're on the road all the time. And so how can I organize my car as my office to be productive when I'm, certainly, I mean, they have so many great pieces that you can buy to file things and carry things in your car, which is great. The concern then is always don't be so distracted.
Yeah,
when you're in your car driving, don't do business when you're driving. Pull over and take care of that. But if we're not, and people think differently. Yeah. And so if we're not in a space that serves the way we work, then it's going to be a struggle for us to accomplish the things that we want. So I think if you're a business owner and you have a staff, it's really important to get their feedback on how they work and what works best for them. When we went, when people started working from home and they suddenly now had, many homes have a designated home office, but now you've got 2 people working from home and maybe 2 or 3 kids.
Right.
And now we're trying to figure out how can we make our home a school, a business, entertainment,
and
a restaurant, and still a home. Right. And so that was really tricky. But I think that people did a remarkable job of figuring out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And some of them still are, as you mentioned earlier.
Our biggest challenge when I did that, when I was working from home, was the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, my kids just bogged down the internet because they're all on devices or they're doing something or whatever.
Multiple devices, too.
And then everyone in the neighborhood is, too. So, like, the entire bandwidth of the neighborhood
I remember it was really bad, too.
Yeah.
Like, just at the beginning because no one expected the need for internet to be that high.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Fascinating discussion about productivity and how our workspace, plays into this. I do want to just transition for a second into in master networks when we meet in chapter meetings. So how could we take the same concept into creating a productive chapter meeting based on the space that we're going to and having our chapter meeting in?
That's tricky because you have people who meet in churches, you have people who meet in restaurants, you have people who meet in an office space that has a training room or whatever, and you don't really have that much flexibility to make it function better because it is what it is. And of course, we're grateful to those people who allow us to use those spaces. I think looking at so a few of the chapters that I work with, some of them have tables and that's great.
Yeah.
Some of them don't. So just setting up the chairs or the tables in a way that people can see each other, talk to each other, make it a little bit more accessible that way. But it's really tricky because you don't have options of color or aesthetics or function, really.
Oh, you remember some of the chapters a long time ago where I remember a church we met in, and it was super dark. Like they had no windows in this, or they were the stained glass windows, and so there's just and dark wood.
It was all wood everywhere, yes.
It was so dark.
It was so dark, and it was so... and if you remember, that really affected the function of that chapter because there was a lack of energy just because the space was so dark and so
it was like a very solemn kind of feeling when you walked in there and you're like...
And you need high energy when you're going to chapter meetings so that you have like that open mindset of talking, wanting to communicate and not just like be so quiet and dark and...
it's hard when you've been in a space yourself and you're so interactive. Our homes are this way, our offices are this way, and our chapter meetings can be this way. We get so routine and so used to the way it is that we're blind to the things that we
don't see it anymore.
We don't even see it. And so it takes a visitor sometimes saying like, man, it's really dark in here. Like, gosh, you're right. It is dark, right? Your eyes adjusted. So you don't realize how dark it is.
Or we say it's a 1 hour high energy meeting and they're like, really?
Yeah.
Did you forget the energy this week? Right. Because it's just...
So true.
Music is super helpful. I know there's a few chapters that have music playing when people come in.
Oh, that's nice.
And it just really, kind of gets you moving and gets things going. Or if you're the chapter president or in leadership, or you don't even have to be in leadership. If you've just got high energy, bring it and share it.
Yeah. So true. Very, very interesting stuff for people to be thinking about, today is workspaces are constantly changing with virtual businesses, with working from home, working in an office, working from your car, working on the go, wherever it is. You might be at a Starbucks and that's where you have to work now, right? So how can you take a portable work area, if you will, and have a small confined workspace? Very interesting tips for people to learn about that. Any last tips you want to share with anyone about either mistakes you see people make or things that they can do to make their space more productive?
I think I would just go back to it's not as simple as a desk and a chair. You do have to make a plan and think about how you've worked before. If you're working from home now, think about how you worked in your office or what didn't work there that you don't want to recreate in your space. But sit down and make a plan. It seems like I shouldn't have to sit down and make a plan. I mean, but you do. And take that 30 minutes and say, where do I want my desk and what size does it need to be and what's the best kind and how do I function in my space?
So good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for a great episode of this episode of Word of Mouth.
Thank you. Yeah. It was great.
Have you ever broken a bone, and if so, how?
Have you ever broken a bone?
Yes. Yes.
Which one and how? This is revealing.
So I broke my foot falling off my shoe. You're welcome.
Josie's laughing. Yeah.
I mean, mine's not like...
Well, hold on. Before you said it, like, that happens to a lot of people, not necessarily that, but like accidents and injuries, like dislocated ribs, arms, all that stuff. Sometimes it's like the most basic activities people...
Yeah.
Like was it your heel? Josie's asking.
No, it was the side of my foot, but I had stepped on an uneven piece of concrete and my foot rolled. And when it hit the concrete, it broke the side bone.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I've only broken one bone, and it was my big toe. And I was walking down bleachers with tennis shoes on. Somehow I fell. I'm a little clumsy. and it broke in 3 places.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. Yeah, my son broke his leg twice, same leg. Like he was out of his cast for 2 weeks and broke his leg. A lot of people heard that story at Connect, but myself, I have not broken a bone, but I have had lots of other injuries, but no broken bones.
Mm-hmm.
So been fortunate that way. I'll probably walk out today and fall off the steps and break my leg. So
Don't say that.
yeah.